Welcome to Formby Footprints. Formby is a magnificent area of beach, sand dunes and pine forest just north of Liverpool on the northwest coast of England. It is rich in wildlife, including very rare natterjack toads and even rarer red squirrels. But 12,000 years ago, Formby lay under sheets of ice, as you can see on this map, provided as open access by the University of Sheffield. It shows the maximum extent of the ice over the British Isles in the last ice age. I've added an arrow to show you where Formby Point lies. As you can see, at that time it was well within the frozen area. As the ice began to melt, the sea levels rose, and as they rose around Formby Point, a large sandbar formed and created a lagoon behind it. Streams from the land flowed into the lagoon and dumped mud there, forming a salt marsh. Reeds grew, and eventually so did trees. In the Mesolithic era, animals and people walked round this lagoon, leaving footprints, some of which were baked in the mud by the sun, filled with sand and covered by more mud. As the edges of the land changed, the prints were buried and lay undisturbed for thousands of years. Eventually, the river channel moved south, and the sandbar disappeared. And now, several thousand years later, erosion is uncovering those old layers of sediment. The sea is washing away the silt, and on good days it's possible to see the tracks of ancient people and animals before the sea washes them away forever. The animal footprints include aurochs, wild boar, red and roe deer and wolves. The human footprints are of varied sizes and show that men, women and children were busy in the salt marshes, hunting, fishing and playing. The footprints have been authenticated as early Neolithic in two ways. Firstly, they were made by people who did not habitually wear shoes. This can be seen by the large gap between big toe and other toes. And secondly, by radiocarbon dating a plant root that was found in one of the footprints. It was dated to between 3,000 and 4,000 years old. And what's really interesting is that people with disabilities seem to have been very much a part of this life. Imprints have been found of people with missing toes, deformed feet, and evidence of club foot. It appears that life was good for these hunter-gatherers, with plenty of food on land and sea, and everyone was able to thrive. There's no evidence in the area of any agriculture. So, that's the story of Formby Point. But it carries on. I went there last week, so here's the story of my adventure. Before I set off, I checked tide times, weather forecast, train times and local maps. I arrived safely. This is the route I planned out, from Formby train station, along the beach and back to Freshfields train station. Here's a lovely thatched cottage I passed along the way, an interesting old church, a very long road in the pine forest leading to the sand dunes, known as Lifeboat Road. You can see from the double yellow lines they weren't expecting any pedestrians. I was the only person walking along it that day. Here's my first view across the dunes. And here's my second view. I wonder if it could have looked anything like this to our Neolithic ancestors. Then I had a very long trek through the dunes. Here's my first glimpse of the sea. And then a bit more. It was only when I reached the beach that I realised just what a lot of beach there was. Still, I had yet another map, which gave a rough indication of where the footprints were. I spent 2 hours walking on the beach. I walked up and down. I paced out 100 metres. I'd read that the footprints tended to be around 100 metres from the land. Tried very hard to find them. I saw lots of shells and whatnot, starfish, nice ripples left by the waves. I walked out to the sea and I turned round and looked back to the dunes. I stopped for a picnic lunch and pretended to investigate the stratification in the sand dune. And this is my last view of the sea. So, I think you know what I'm going to say. Not an ancient footprint to be seen. Just the wrong day. The high tides have temporarily covered the sediments with sand. Ah well. But I did see some red squirrels. I can't end without mentioning the local teacher, Gordon Roberts, who first spotted the footprints in the 1980s and still researches them. Check out his website, it's well worth a visit. He's very highly respected in archaeological circles. I hope you've enjoyed this tiny window into the world of our hunter-gatherer ancestors. If you're ever in this part of the world, I'd love you to join me in my search again for those ephemeral footprints. In the meantime, here's a picture of Crosby Beach, just a mile or two to the south of Formby Beach, where there's a beautiful installation called Another Place. It's 100 Iron Men, an installation by the artist Anthony Gormley. It's there in perpetuity, so I do wonder what our descendants will make of those Iron Men when we're all long gone and there's no one to explain it to them. And finally, here are my references.